someone was like, now, okay, I'm going to finish this episode, I'm going to go and do 5 things to implement over the next couple of weeks, what would you want those 5 things to be?
First off, I'd say focus on fibre. Fibre has been, forgotten and thinking it all just kind of some shoddy reputation of being bland and boring, just something that helps you have a nice smooth poo. Yes, it does that, and we should be giving it, lots of credit for that. But it has so many benefits, and I joke about it as being a bit like, when Lois Lane hangs out with Clark Kent from Superman, and she just thinks he's some kind of boring, well, kind of nice, but slightly dull, man. And he's actually Superman flying around in this cape. And I think fibre really is that kind of closest thing to a superfood. It's not just helping with our gut microbiome, but it's great for our heart health. It's great for our metabolic health. There's so many things that we can be, doing more. But for our gut microbiome, it is really its favourite food. And 93% of us are not eating enough fibre. So it's something
that's a
we
huge
can,
stat. I wrote that down earlier because you mentioned that in our 5 questions. And I haven't brought it up yet, but it did shock me. That's gone up since I last looked at the statistics, actually, which kind of surprises me because I feel that we speak more about health than ever before. I don't know why it's going up.
Well, on average, we're eating about 20 grams of fibre a day in the UK. That's slightly up from kind of 18, which it was before. That's still a deficit of kind of 35-40%. So I think just for me, that signals that, that is one really simple, impactful change that you can make for your health. And the beauty of fibre-rich foods, they're also densely packed with many other nutrients that are going to mean that you kind of naturally meet your nutritional needs in many other ways as well. So that is probably my first one. Second one, I'm like, okay, we've talked about fibre, but we just don't seem to know day to day what the high fibre foods are. I think we're very quick at knowing what the high protein foods are. I'll say to someone, list it off the top of your head. They'll say meat, eggs, fish. Can we do the same for fibre? And I actually say, whoever's listening, please, think, is anything coming to mind? And no, we don't have to be stuck on, dry, justy bran flakes or kind of bland wholemeal bread. Fibre is found in fruits, vegetables, beans, legumes, whole grains, nuts and seeds. So we've got this wide variety of fibre and lots of different fibre types that help support our health. So I talk a lot in the book about what I call the BGBGs, which is a little bit like, the Bee Gees, 70s band, Saturday Night Fever. So we're throwing our gut microbes a party. And they're affected. So BGBGS, so beans, greens, berries, grains as in whole grains, and then seeds as in nuts and seeds. And actually of those, it's the beans, whole grains, and nuts and seeds that tend to contain the most fibre. So I think that's quite surprising often because I think, yes, we want more fruits and vegetables. But to make it really easy for us to hit that 30 grams of fibre a day that's recommended, if we're focusing on having a handful of nuts a day as a snack, I keep them in a jar by my kettle so I can kind of see it when I'm making a cup of tea. If we can getting, berries most days also contain, lots of polyphenols that are really important for our brain. They tend to be the most kind of fibre-rich fruit. Frozen berries, chuck them onto your breakfast, have them as a snack or have fresh, whatever works for you. And then oh, sorry, I feel like I was talking about berries and beans. I wanted the wrong bee. You got that. There's an extra bee. But beans, we could be eating so much more of. Just half a can contains 7 grams of fibre. So that for most people could just by adding that in, that's, you're already nearly hitting your 30 grams. Yeah. We just need a little kind of extra top up. And then the whole grains, I think when people say, oh, I really want to invest in my gut health, I say, if you're going to spend money on something, spend it on the things that are going to make it easier for you to eat healthily. So that could be kind of, those pre-cooked sachets of spelt or grains. That for me is like, if I'm going to splurge on something, it's those kind of things because they are expensive. You don't have to. You can, buy them in bulk and pre-cook them. But that's where I'd be putting my investment if you're going to spend money. Those simple things are going to make it easier for you.
So we've got fibre.
Yes.
What's 2, 3, 4, and 5?
Okay. And then we talk about diversity. I'm actually not a big fan of the 30 plants a week message. The reason for that is that I think it's very individual. I think if somebody really likes that and they find it easy, then great. And I think the message of diversity is really important. We do want a range of different things. But I prefer to talk about colours of different fruits and vegetables, giving you lots of different, we talk about polyphenols, which are also good for the gut microbiome, lots of different types of fibres, and also thinking about food groups across the day.
Yeah.
The reason I'm not that hot on the 30 plants a week message is that it's actually just based on one study, which is a kind of guesstimated survey question. So it's not even rigorously corrected dietary data. It's literally, how many plants do you think you've eaten across the week? And the people who said that they ate 30 plants or more likely were probably just eating more fruits and vegetables overall. And I think when practically for many people, writing down every single plant you eat every single day can feel really overwhelming. And especially, if you're like, oh, well, I ate a tomato on Monday, so I can't have it on Wednesday. And then you've got loads of food waste left over, and it can be really expensive. So I think if you find that works for you, great, but don't feel like it's the be all and end all. Kind of take the message, the core message, which is, yes, let's have a more diverse diet. We know that. But again, finding that sweet spot for you and your lifestyle, and not feeling like you have to write everything single thing down.
No, that's not healthy.
Yeah.
So fiber diversity,
and then we're going to talk about. So I mentioned about polyphenols. So polyphenols are effectively these kind of plant compounds that give the colour to many fruits and vegetables that we know and love. And we think of them almost as acting a little bit like how fibre does and feeding the gut microbes. And so by getting a range of different colours, you're then getting a range of different polyphenols. And not just great for your gut, also great for your brain as well. And we see kind of studies with particularly the ones found in berries, for example, really helping to support your kind of cognition and keeping you feeling alert and focused. And then I think we'd really have to talk about that stress element, right?
Yeah.
And talking about breathing and
breathing's number 4. What would you say number 4 is?
So number 4, well, I feel like, I think we could talk about fish. There's so many things. Fermented foods.
No, wait, you just said stress. Did you not think that should be one of them?
Well, one of them is, yes. Where are we at for...
So we've basically got fibre, diversity, polyphenols.
Yes. So we need 2 more.
So we need 2 more.
Yeah. So we've got fermented foods and stress. Let's do that.
Fermented foods, yeah, but you got to narrow me in. Can't be stress. I'm being really strict now. It's got to be
we're just doing
applicable.
Food. Yes.
No, it's got to be, no, we can be anything. The 5 things that people can do for their gut health.
Yes, so I was going to say breathing techniques.
Breathing technique. Okay, right. These are our 5. This is what we're doing when Live Well, Be Well, Gut Health.
There we go.
Okay, so let's go to fermented then.
Fermented foods. The research, there was a great study that came out a couple of years ago that showed that 6 servings of fermented foods a day is linked with, kind of caused increased microbial diversity, so a more healthy gut microbiome, and lowered measures of inflammation. So that feels, I think, very overwhelming for people. 6 servings, kind of, oh my gosh, I've got to fit all these in. Actually, that, I think often with these studies, how we do them is that we tend to make them, quite a big change so that we can make sure that we can see an impact across what is a relatively short period of time, which is a couple of, weeks or months. So actually making those changes, even if they're smaller, but more consistently over time. So let's say months or years, even if it's kind of 1 or 2 servings, is still going to have a benefit. We still see this in, and we see this in other studies that, even 100 grams of kind of live microbial foods, which can not just be, your fermented foods, but also we talked about, fruits and vegetables containing live microbes, is also kind of seen to be a great thing. In terms of the research, when we talk about individual fermented foods, it tends to be that kefir has the most research behind it. So if you're starting on a fermented food, start with kefir. It has the most impact from what we know so far in terms of how much research has been done. Kombucha is an interesting one because I think it gets a lot of airtime, but actually we've only had a handful of very small kind of human studies on it. So kind of just to kind of bring that into context. And then we want to talk about
breathing.
And breathing.
I've made you pick one because I think stress is such a encompassing word but it's like, what's the one thing that we can do for our gut health? And so breathing, you feel, is one of the key levers that we can pull. I mean, breathing's essential to be alive, but breathing techniques.
I think when we can't avoid stress, right?
No.
For me, it's very much breathing techniques are a great tool to help us manage that stress. And I really like breathing techniques versus, I think people are a fan of yoga, great, go for it. But actually, you want something that, you can use right in the here and now, whether you are standing in the queue, at the supermarket and wanting to kind of probably, maybe punch the person in front of you, or you're feeling incredibly, or you're in a meeting and, your blood levels are kind of rising and you're thinking, oh God. These breathing techniques, you can often, so many of them you can just do and nobody notices you're doing them.
Yeah.
So, I just think really great. So there's kind of box breathing, which is effectively kind of breathing in for 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, holding for 4. So again, really simple, or just kind of letting out a really long sigh. So kind of just sighing out, hold it for a second, then sigh out a bit more.
The psychological sigh. It's great.
There we go.
And if these are techniques that actually the Navy SEALs use, which for anyone who, I don't think anyone listening to the show thinks it's woo-woo because it's so rooted in science, but I feel like when I say that to people, they go, oh, really? Like some of the toughest men on the planet use these breathing techniques to get their nervous systems regulated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, even performance as well. Like, that's exactly why they're getting themselves in the zone. They're calming themselves down. And, that's, stress. It's, if we can't avoid it because everyday life, can we help ourselves manage it? And that's really kind of a key way that I like to kind of talk about it.